You're on.
We are.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the sound, but you're on.
Good afternoon and welcome to the regular meeting of the City of Glendale Commission on the Status of Women. Roll call, please.
Chair Burns.
Present.
Commissioner Kajayan.
Present.
Ex officio Kim.
Present.
Commissioner Lambolat.
Here.
Vice Chair Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Perrion.
Present.
And ex officio Serrano.
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Next item on the agenda, please.
At 1A is a report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for the August 10, 2015 meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside of City Hall on or before August 7, 2015. And the next item on the agenda, under 2 introductions and presentations. A is the introduction of new Commissioner Armine Perrion. I could turn the meeting over to her so she can provide a brief introduction of herself.
You are more than welcome and recall 20 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Armine Perrion. I have been a citizen of Glendale for 30-some years. By trade, I'm a clinical laboratory scientist, and I have held management and administrative positions at various healthcare organizations. And I'm very happy to be here to be able to serve my city and my community.
And we're delighted to have you. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda, please.
At B is a presentation on domestic violence in Glendale, and with us we have Sergeant Alex Krikorian from the Glendale Police Department who will be providing a report to the Commission.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'll keep mine at 20 minutes as well.
We thought perhaps 30 for you.
Oh, jeez. I'll do my best. Good afternoon. My name is Alex Krikorian, as I was introduced, and I'm a sergeant with the Glendale Police Department, and I am currently assigned to the Violent Crimes Bureau in the Investigative Division. Specifically, I work assaults. Assaults is a very unique detail as we handle a wide variety of crimes. The crimes range from annoying phone calls, annoying emails, up to child abuse, sexual assaults, and of course domestic violence, the reason I'm here today. The unit is one of the biggest ones in the unit as far as the in the department as far as the investigative division. We have 5 detectives and a sergeant, which is me, and we handle probably one of the biggest caseloads in the unit. And I'm proud to say that my detectives are very passionate about the cases that they get. We have 2 slides I'd like to share with you. The colorful one. Over here we have a slide on related reports to domestic violence for the first 6 months of the year. As you can see, 2015 is slightly above 2014, which is a little bit higher than 2013, although we are a lot less than 2011. What I'd like to attribute this to is education. I was talking about this with my colleague here, Lucy Hollingsworth with the YWCA. Would you like to say hello? We were talking about why there's this slight climb in numbers, and we'd like to think it's through education. We've been working on educating the public on domestic violence, and we've seen a greater increase in what's called a domestic disturbance call. So anytime the police department receives a call of an argument, hey, my neighbors are arguing, someone's screaming for help, we'll respond to it, and we'll take a report, whether there's a crime or not. So this number right here would indicate not just domestic violence assaults, but domestic violence disturbances. So we'd like to think that neighbors, people of the community, they hear their neighbors fighting, and rather than just saying, oh, they're just arguing, it's not a big deal, hey, let's call the police and let's get somebody else and some fresh eyes out there to see what's going on inside that apartment, inside that home. Slide, please. Yes. Again, this is just a colorful version of what we saw above more of a bar graph as opposed to the number scale. And this one is reported assaults, and it'll give you a percentage of assaults and the DV-related assaults in comparison. So a regular assault would be someone walking down the street, they get into an argument, they get into some kind of mutual combat, bar fight, just any type of assault that can happen out in the streets. And then next to it, you see the DV-related. So anything that would be cohabitants, spouses, anything that would happen with some type of relationship. And as we can see, excuse me? Okay. And you can see here our numbers in domestic violence related assaults is significantly less as it was the preceding years. So 46 as compared to 32 at the beginning of last year, but each subsequent number is lower. So we see a decrease in domestic violence as it relates to assaults as a whole within the whole city. So, moving on, some of the things that we're doing to help reduce these numbers, of course, unfortunately, domestic violence is a reactive crime. We can't always stop domestic violence, but what we can do is educate people. And we're doing that with helping victims with the recovery process and trying to break the circle of violence. And we've done that with trying to build a strong relationship with the YWCA. They provide a multitude of resources for victims. One of the things we've done is we've updated our pamphlet. We have brand new phone numbers. Some of the numbers were outdated. New numbers, a lot of organizations have changed their names, new websites, so we've updated that. It's hot off the presses, and we're passing that out. If someone would like a copy, we have them at the front desk and at the police station. And this is something that goes out to each victim of domestic violence or someone who just wants more information on the subject or for resources. We also deal with the LA County Victims Assistance Program. What that is anytime someone's a victim of domestic violence or just a victim of any type of crime, we'll refer them to this program, and they'll help out with moving costs and trying to get them going in the right direction so they can start their life again in a positive note. We also have an emergency fund that you have given to us very graciously. We use that as an emergency, as it's called, an emergency fund. And it's something we don't like to use if we don't have to, because we want to save it for a rainy day. Usually what we'll do is if we have someone that doesn't feel safe at home, we'll refer them to the Y. The Y has a significant amount of space for people to go to for shelter. Unfortunately, sometimes their overflows are overflowed, and then that overflow is overflowed. So when that happens is when we'll turn to this emergency fund, and we'll use it to find some shelter for the victim. And we use it on occasion. We've used it once this year where we had a victim of domestic violence. The overflow was overflowed, and I mean, we were kind of at our wits' end. We had nowhere to go. It was like 2 o'clock on a Saturday night, and really nowhere to turn to. We jumped on this fund. We got them a room at a hotel. They were able to stay there for a few nights, got some hot meals, and were able to start again once the week started. We were able to get the legal process going as far as restraining orders and whatever else. An additional part that we try to do to help out is it's our policy that anytime, like I mentioned earlier, we go out to a domestic disturbance call, is we'll take a report. And what that does is that report gets generated. It comes to me, I'll read it, and I'll assign it to a detective. And it's my personal policy that my detectives call each individual in these cases. So we don't always have a suspect and a victim. We call them subjects because it's just an argument. And the detective will call them, both parties. Hopefully things have cooled down. We can speak to the woman, we can speak to the male, and ask them, hey, is everything okay? The police came out to your house the other night. Is it just an argument, or is there something more that you didn't feel safe talking to the police officers at that point? And more often than not, that's all it was, is just an argument, and the case is closed in that sense. Sometimes someone will say, you know what, there's actually more to it. Can I talk to you later? They'll call us back, and they'll discuss some of the problems that they're having at home. And just last week, I believe it was, we had an incident where it started out as a domestic just disturbance. A woman said that she didn't feel safe at home. We found her some shelter at the Y, and Lucy had brought her in. She spoke to a detective one-on-one, and she disclosed years of abuse. So what started off as just an argument, I don't feel safe at home, turned into a criminal investigation. So we're happy that we've set these policies in place and working with the Y to find these problems as they arise. Also, anytime we do have an allegation of crime, we'll always present it to the district attorney. There's always overview from the district attorney's office. So if we feel that there's a crime that's been committed, whether there was an arrest or not, we'll present that to the district attorney's office. And we also have a partnership with, it's called the VIP, Victim Impact Program. It's a special domestic violence unit for domestic violence and sexual assaults. And they're out of Pasadena, and we work with them with presenting significant cases to them. As I said, domestic violence is a reactive crime, so we try and get information out, again, with our pamphlets. Through the Y, we try and get resources to people. And we also have collaborations with the Y, the district attorney's office, and the VIP office. So we'll meet. We met earlier this year, and we had a big discussion on restraining orders and how they go about trying to get it for their clients, and how the district attorney's office uses them in criminal proceedings, and how we use them to arrest people. So it was a good dialogue that we had, and each person kind of understood what the other entity does. We also train advocates. The advocates at the Y, that the Y provides for our the victims. They have a 40-hour. It's a 40-hour class that they have to take. It's state mandated if they want to be an advocate for a domestic violence victim. And we give a block of instruction on it as detectives, and we walk them through the process of what we have to do and what we're looking for as far as a criminal filing, and what we're looking for and how we try to work together to get what's best for the victim. We also refer victims to the Y as a resource. They've been fabulous. They help us out, and we like them a lot. We hope they feel the same way about us, which I think they do. We also encourage their clients to come and discuss any type of further allegations of abuse at the home. Like I said, a lot of times when a police officer goes out to the home, people are reluctant to disclose any type of abuse for whatever reason, sometimes just some time apart. Speaking to someone who's well-versed in the circle of violence, they'll really open up. We'll bring them back to the police department, and we can get these new facts, and hopefully, if there's a crime, presented to the district attorney for a criminal filing. Lastly, because I have a microphone and some airtime, I just want to give a shout-out to my detectives. They're some of the most hardworking detectives I've ever worked with. Their caseload just goes through the roof, and every time they get a case, they take the time to give the attention that each victim deserves. And like I said, we handle some pretty crazy things that would make your skin crawl. But every day they come in, they talk to these kids, these women, these victims, and they do their best to do what they can. So I'm really proud of them. So if you have any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Your efforts are, I'm sure, very much appreciated by the women and families you deal with, and certainly by us in the city. The question I had was, I was at a conference recently, and the county of Riverside was talking about the backlog in the DNA rape kits. And I know several years ago, LA had a backlog. Is Glendale up to date on those, or do we have an issue there?
We, as you know, we have our own DNA lab.
Right.
So we're starting to use them as our DNA cases come in. While I was a detective, I worked these crimes for 4 years before I became a sergeant, so I had some experience with it. But we use the sheriff's lab, and they have a pretty good turnaround time. Thankfully, rape cases, because they're so serious, they take a long time as they go through the court process, so it gives us time to get results back when we submit something for DNA. But as far as our DNA cases right now, we're pretty much up to date. I mean, the turnaround time that we're getting is, anywhere from a few weeks to a couple months, which is pretty fast in comparison to other agencies in other counties.
That is great. Yes, certainly from what I hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Krikorian. Thank you. This was very informative information to hear, especially decreasing domestic violence. We are happy about that. We wish we can hear also for sexual assault in future. Thank you.
How many detectives do you have, Sergeant?
Right now, I have 5 detectives.
And I am terribly sorry, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I remember a number that the Women's Commission gave to the police. Was it $2,500?
I believe it was about that.
Do you have any idea what's left?
We're just above 2,000. We're hovering just above 2,000. Like I said, we try and use this as an emergency fund. We want to use free resources before we use our money. But we're still going strong. If you have more, we'd like to take it. But we're doing really well.
Sounds like you are using it correctly also.
Yeah, we try and use it sparingly. We don't want to just willy-nilly, get people stuff when we have free resources. Why?
Are there any other commissioners that wish to? Thank you.
Thank you very much. If anyone ever wants a tour of our unit, we'd be more than happy to have you over.
Thank you so very much.
Alex.
Thank you. The oral communications, do we have any speakers?
No, but I'll read the item into the record. At 3 is oral comment. There are no cards, so we're good. And at 4 is consent items. A is approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting held on May 11, 2015.
Are there any changes that the commission would like to make to the minutes? Or is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I move to approve them as presented.
Second.
I second.
Would you like a roll call vote?
Yes, please.
Okay. Commissioner Kajayan?
Yes.
Lambalot?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Perrion?
Abstain.
Yes. And Chair Burns?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, please.
At 5 is the business agenda. A is action items. First item is consideration of scheduling of regular meetings. At A is a motion to cancel the regular commission meeting scheduled for Monday, November 9, 2015. At B is a motion to hold a special commission meeting on Monday, November 16, 2015. And at C is a motion to set regular meetings. Would you like a brief report on this item?
Yes, please, Ms. Powers.
Sure. At the last meeting, the Commission set its regular meeting schedule through the end of 2015, which includes next meeting, which is scheduled for Monday, November 9th. Due to the Veterans Day holiday occurring that week, staff is recommending that the regular meeting of November 9 be canceled and replaced with a special meeting on the following Monday, November 16th. Now, the time was decided for the meetings for 2015, so those would still be set at 5:30. And additionally, staff recommends that the Commission establish its regular meeting schedule moving forward. At the last meeting, the Commission did decide to hold its meetings for 2016 specifically in the second Monday of the month for February, May, August, and November, but a time wasn't set. So at this time, staff recommends that a time be set and that also the schedule be set in perpetuity, not just necessarily for 2016, recognizing that we can make changes along the way if we need to.
This item is open for discussion now. Commissioners?
I'm okay.
Okay to change it to November.
Changes.
One
Chair Burns, one special note. I do want to let you know that at the last meeting, at the meeting of the City Council where our strategic plan was being approved, the biggest question that came up from a couple of the council members, specifically Vartan Garpetian and Zare Sananian, were specifically in terms of the amount of meetings that we might need in order to do the business that we need to do. And really what I want to relay to them, if you didn't have a chance to see the meeting, is that they did strongly encourage us that although we are going to set meeting dates and we are going to follow the strategic plan, that we know as a group that in the event that we need to hold special meetings in order to conduct the business that we have, that they certainly encourage us to do so. And that came from both Councilmember Garpetian, and the final wording on that was Councilmember Zari Sananian, who, again, special thanks to both of them for the support they're showing as we go through this transition about how we may continue to conduct business and be effective for the women in the city of Glendale. So that was promising, and I wanted to share that with the Commission. Thank you.
Ms. Powers, excuse me, how are we going to look at A, B, and C? Are we going to vote on them all at the same time?
You can certainly, Madam Chair, you can certainly look at items A and B together. They relate, and then separately review item C.
Well, shall we look at the, I'm sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. Excuse me. Could we just look at the 9th to the 16th?
Chair Burns, would you like me to make a motion to cancel the scheduled meeting for Monday, November 9th and reschedule to Monday, November 16th?
That sounds perfect.
Yes.
Yes, please do that.
We need a second to that motion.
I second.
Okay. Would you like a roll call vote on that
Yes,
item?
please.
Commissioner Kajayan?
Yes.
Lambalot?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Arian?
Yes.
Chair Burns?
Yes. And, excuse me, this is just specifically for November.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And certainly, I'm sure we all watched Tuesday's meeting, and I certainly got the impression that anytime the commission felt a need for a special meeting, that there was an ability to call one. That this wasn't 4 meetings and that's it. So I think that we all understood that if something came along that was really important to us, that we would be allowed to call a special meeting. And I'm not so sure that Zari would call the special meeting every month. So,
Chair Burns, may I ask our council a question on that, or our administrative?
Certainly.
okay, council.
How do we, so let's just say, for example, we'd like to call a special meeting. Is that the chair who calls that special? Do we call the chair? Does the chair call you? Do we have to be unanimous on that? How does that happen?
Calling a special meeting is set forth in there are specific requirements that we follow both in the Brown Act and in our code. You would need, generally it's done, for example, for the city council meetings, it's done by the mayor. Here it would be done by the chair. Alternatively, you could have 2 commissioners request that a special meeting be called, and we can do it that way. Alternatively, it can come up during commissioner comments. So, for example, at the end of this meeting, you may make a request that one more meeting be set. But typically, it's done through the chair.
In other words, you would call me. correct?
That's what I understand.
Is that what?
Okay, thank you.
And at that point, I would contact Ms. Powers, although we do know that she's going to be not available for a few weeks, but
I will make myself available to the commission.
you'll be around in November for that period of time.
I'll be on leave, but I plan on coming back for the November meeting, and whatever the commission needs, I'll make myself available. And if I can't make myself available, someone from staff will make themselves available. So the commission can set meetings and continue their business, rest assured.
Well, since this item is open for discussion, have we discussed it? Are we understanding how we hold a special meeting?
I think we're looking at for further direction on item C.
Mm-hmm. So what you would like would be your 4 meetings on this 2016. The dates?
Not specifically, sorry, Chair Burns, not specifically for 2016, but just setting the schedule from here on out, 2016 and beyond, setting them, because at the last meeting, we did specifically set them for 2016 without a time. What staff is looking for this time is to set them in perpetuity with a time. Understanding, again, that this can be changed in the future if the meeting time and date doesn't work, but we'd like to establish a regular schedule moving forward with a time for the commission.
Are you speaking about 5:30 every second Monday?
Of that quarter of the month, the months we mentioned.
This is what you're speaking about now?
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
So just again in practice, if I may ask one more question of the dais. Chair Burns, is that all right?
of course.
So just in terms of understanding this in real time, let's say one of our ad hoc committees comes up with something very specific, whether it looks like we're going to have a discussion around the Mount St. Mary's report, around education. Let's say we want to utilize a special meeting to either present what's been done or have further dialogue. The process would simply be 1 or 2 commissioners asking the chair would say yes, and that's it, it happens? Or are we going to get feedback from staff advising us?
Is the concern that the meetings won't take place? I mean, understanding that when a chair is trying to set a meeting, there's a number of things that are at play. The availability of space, the availability of staff, other workload items that are to be taken into consideration. So if there's a request for a special meeting because you have an item that is time sensitive, then certainly all of those things go into consideration when trying to select a date. So for example, if you had an item that was in fact time sensitive and you needed to address it by a Tuesday, we certainly would not be scheduling a meeting on Tuesday afternoon because that would conflict with council, so the request would be denied. But if, barring other logistical issues, then meetings would be set. I think what we're looking for here is the predictability on the part of the public in trying to understand when this commission meets. This commission is somewhat rare because we used to have the second Monday of every month, and that's changed, and we're looking to find that established, predictable time frame when the public can know when the commission meets at a set time. That's not to say that if additional meetings are necessary, they won't take place, or if a meeting like the one in November conflicted with a holiday, that won't be canceled and a new one set. But what we're looking for at this point is establishing your regular meetings beyond a one-year time frame so that there is some degree of predictability on the part of the public as to when our meetings take place. Mm-hmm. And as you know, there are organizations in our partner groups who look forward to certain things to pair with us, and it would be helpful if they knew when the meeting in 2017 would take place. So I think that's what we're looking for, and it's pretty straightforward.
And I think my question goes to something slightly different, not to belabor this point, but in order for me to vote on this particular process, establishing the 4 timeframes, I'm sure we're going to get to consensus fairly quickly on this as soon as I stop asking questions. But the more specifically as it relates to special meetings, not saying that we're going to go every single month and establish a special meeting. That is not the charge that I heard from council, but nor did I hear time sensitive. I heard that if this commission is so moved that we are in the process of working on something and it is specifically to move our agenda, that we can request a special meeting. That's my understanding from the direction that I heard 2 of the council say to me. If everybody watched it, maybe you'd like to weigh in.
What did you just say?
Specifically, the 4 meetings, I think we're all going to get consensus on that. So my questions aren't about the 4 meetings. My questions are about the special meetings. And so specifically, we can do the motion on 4 meetings right now, and then we can come back and I can still ask questions about the special meetings. If there were to be special meetings, my understanding from what I got from the council is that if there are things that we are working on that needs to be done, we can request a special meeting. It doesn't just have to be time sensitive. It has to be what this commission's working on that we go to our chair. The specific question, Chair Burns, if this is where it became confusing, the specific question in that is that as far as it goes, or can staff say, no, that's not important enough and therefore we're not having a special meeting?
If my comment led you to believe that special meetings are only in the event of a time-sensitive, urgent type of a situation, then that's not correct. Special meetings may be called at various times for various reasons. The November meeting being an example of that. For example, there's no urgency to it. That meeting on the 9th could have been canceled and no other meeting could have been scheduled. But for purposes of moving the committee's work along, a special meeting was established on the 16th. Clearly no urgency, and we don't even have the agenda set for that. So urgencies aren't the only reason why you would call for a special meeting. When a commission does request a special meeting, and that request is going to be denied, it would be, I assure you, beyond Christine's, Ms. Powers' authority to do that. It would probably be at a city manager level to deny the request of a commission to call for a special meeting, and it would be based on logistical reasons. Having availability of staff, having availability of room, conflicts with other things going on in the city. If you wanted to have a meeting on the same night as cruise night, for example, those would be issues that management would take into account in determining whether or not to deny your request. So, yeah.
But it wouldn't be content-based. It would be logistical-based. Those make sense to us. We all run businesses here and work for employers. It wouldn't be content-based, based on the denial. It would be logistical-based.
It could possibly be content-based if the content presents itself in a way, if you're responding to legislation, and on that particular issue there's urgency, we may have to move it up sooner than your requested special meeting date. So there are various factors that go into determining whether or not the request to set the special meeting date can be honored.
Thank you, Ms. Farpetchian. Chair Burns, I'm satisfied with my questions that I have, so if anybody else...
Are there any other questions by any of the other commissioners? It would seem to me, just as an added throw-in, that if 1 or 2 commissioners felt strongly enough to ask for a special meeting and requested it, if it was possible to work that meeting in with ease, it would be. If it wasn't, it would be worked in as soon as possible. I'm not sure that Mr. Ochoa is going to say don't like the topic, I think that it's important that this commission knows that this commission is important. So if there is something that we really need to look at and look at quickly, as I was reading through this, I'm thinking there's a tremendous amount of reading and work in this packet. Am I going to be able to even take it all in? But Kajoyan and Meseta and I'm sorry. If you think it's important enough
To have a special meeting.
to have a special meeting
Yes, we
so
can.
that we're able to understand what's being presented, because a lot of this is written by attorneys in Sacramento, and I'm not so sure that some of these words that are used don't need some explanation. So I think we're okay. I do. I think that we are okay as far as requesting a special meeting.
We still need direction on the regular meeting
Need a
dates.
motion.
Yes, please.
Chair Burns, would you like a motion on
Yes, I
item C?
would.
So within that, Ms. Powers, are you requesting that we actually state out loud the actual months, February, May, August, November?
Second Monday of the month and a time, please.
I make a motion that we set our calendar for 2016 for the second,
Or not just 2016, but just our calendar moving forward. I'm sorry to interrupt, Vice Chair Miller.
216.
Not just 2016, this is just our regular schedule moving forward will be the second Monday of the following months.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'll go ahead and move that moving forward after the November 16th meeting, 2015, that we set our regular meetings for the second Monday of the following months, February, May, August, and November at 5:30 p.m., beginning in February 2016 and in perpetuity until and if it's changed.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, Commissioners Kajayan,
Yes.
Lambalot,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Arian,
Yes.
Chair Burns.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item is item 2, consideration and discussion of ad hoc committees to support the 2015 through 2018 Commission on the Status of Women's Strategic Plan. And at A is a motion to establish ad hoc committees. And would you like a report on this item?
Yes, please.
Okay, Chair Burns, members of the Commission, I'm happy to report that the Glendale City Council recently adopted the Commission on the Status of Women's 2015 through 18 Strategic Plan. As you are well aware, the strategic plan established the following aims and goals. 1, to evaluate and assess. 2, policy development, advocacy, and advising. 3, communication, education, and outreach. 4, community partnerships and liaisons. Now, taking into consideration previous commission discussions, staff recommends the creation of ad hoc committees in order to allow commissioners to work with staff on specific goals for the CSW in between the regularly set quarterly meetings. Commissioners can provide updates on the progress of their respective committees at meetings as needed. Staff recommends that no more than 1 to 2 members sit on each committee in order to avoid any conflicts with the Brown Act. These ad hoc committees are temporary, and the Commission can sunset any of them if and when the goals of that committee have been met. And furthermore, at any future meetings, should the need arise, the Commission can also create additional ad hoc meetings to further the goals in the strategic plan. The first ad hoc committee you have before you pertains to a report on the status of women and girls. And this is, staff added this to the report because there have been several discussions about bringing forth an updated report specific to girls and women in the city of Glendale and the status of them. A previous report by the commission was produced in 2006. So coming up on 10 years, it would be timely for the commission to look at something like this. And I know this is a discussion that the commission has been having. And one of the possibilities that has been discussed at previous meetings as well is partnering with Mount St. Mary's, which you'll see in the following report. But this would be to establish an ad hoc committee that would look at what kind of report the commission wants based on direction provided in the next report that you have, and work with staff to review, the content, design, format, editing before the report is brought back to the full commission for approval. So again, ad hoc committees don't make decisions necessarily on behalf of the commission. Everything does come back to the commission for final approval. The second ad hoc committee deals with education and outreach, and this committee's focus would be to provide the community with relevant information that pertains to women and girls. Some of the activities of this committee would include helping identify speakers for the November 2015 and even setting this 2016 calendar of meetings, similar to how you had the Glendale Police Department come and speak before you today. Working to develop a new system of recognizing women in the community in lieu of the Jules Luncheon, and working to identify local agencies that may be able to carry on certain CSW programs from the past, such as Camp Rosie. And the third ad hoc committee before you for consideration is titled Community Partnerships, and this committee's focus would be to work on building alliances and collaborating with the community to improve the status and well-being of women and girls in Glendale. This would be looking at existing and new partnerships to further the goals and the mission of the CSW, and working with staff to identify state and county resources and services for women and girls and make sure that our local Glendale agencies are aware of them and are utilizing them. It seemed like some of the domestic violence resources that Sergeant Krikorian talked about, the YWCA is utilizing, so it would just be making sure that in other areas of interest we do have the county and the locals talking to each other and maximizing resources. So I would like to point out that an ad hoc committee was not proposed for Strategic Aim 2, which deals with policy development, advocacy, and advising, as the goals of this strategic aim can be accomplished at regular quarterly meetings. The city does have existing lobbyists that work with staff on a regular basis to help identify legislation that supports the commission's platform. They have a copy of the platform, and these items can be brought back to the commission at quarterly meetings for discussions and recommendation to council for action on behalf of the CSW. That concludes staff's report. These committees are before you to, you can add committees, delete committees, just any direction that you have, be happy to hear.
Ms. Powers, for some reason or other, this seems to should be coming after this one, after the Mount St. Mary's one. I'm not so sure that.
You can hold it over.
Simply because you're in this analysis, we have discussion of forming ad hoc committees. But if we go over one more, we're going to be looking at what Mount St. Mary's offers. I don't know, it would...
Well, chairpersons, members of the commission, we can certainly take them in a different order if you'd like. In this report, we would simply be establishing for ad hoc committee one would be the person or persons, the one or two commissioners that would take direction from whatever the commission decides for the Mount St. Mary's report and work with staff to implement that direction in between the meetings. That would be what that person would do. But if you'd like to take them But if you'd like to come back to this item after we discuss the Mount St. Mary's report, we can certainly do that.
Chair Burns, I'm not sure that anybody's going to disagree with what's been said about this particular ad hoc committee. In fact, if you're looking for volunteers, this is one that I'm so moved to participate on regarding the women and girls, or if you'd like to hold it over, it's really whatever you decide. I'm not reading the consensus of this particular commission that someone's going to say, let's take that out of the ad hoc.
I'm not, that's not what I was really trying to say. I was just trying to give the commission a little bit more thoughtful time as to what they wanted, if we wanted to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. What are we wanting Mount St. Mary's to come up with? I'm happy with anybody who'd like to volunteer for these aims, strategic plans. Fine.
Could I speak? First of all, I wanted to thank staff for coming up with this outline of the ad hoc committees. I think it's very useful. I'm really excited about them. It allows us to, it gives us direction and allows us to develop content for, the next few months until we have our next meeting. And I did watch the city council meeting. I know there was certainly concern expressed about the quarterly meetings. I was also very gratified at the fact that the council members took the time they did to discuss the commission. I expected it to be a very short item, and obviously it wasn't. So first of all, I wanted to thank staff for putting this outline and proposing the ad hoc committees, because I think it's how we're really going to get the work done. Secondly, my understanding, and I'd like clarification on this, is the ad hoc committee would be the one making some decisions and having questions on what we want to include and how much we want to spend on the Mount St. Mary's report. We're not going to decide that tonight.
Correct.
Commissioner Lambelotte, members of the commission, at the next, in your next report, you certainly have the ability as a commission to provide that direction tonight.
Okay.
That what type of report you want and how much, if you want to set the amount. What the ad hoc committee would then do is work within the parameters and the directions set by the commission here in executing some of the smaller tasks as far as the way the content goes and the formatting and the editing, but taking the larger direction of the commission and working with staff to execute the report and bring it back to the commission for approval.
Then, in my opinion, it makes sense to see if we can get volunteers or assignments for the ad hoc committee now, so when we move on to that discussion, those people on that ad hoc committee will have the benefit of the discussion and pay particular attention to it. That is only my opinion.
I think that's a dandy opinion.
Okay.
I'm volunteering.
And what are you volunteering for?
I'm volunteering for ad hoc committee 1.
That would be a report on the status of women and girls.
Yes, the report on the status of women and girls.
I'd like to be in that one too.
Okay.
And I'm volunteering for ad hoc committee number 2, education and outreach.
Okay.
And I'm happy to work with one of our student members if any of them would like to be on.
And I would thank you for that reminder, Commissioner Lambelotte. I would just staff would like to point out that the student ex officios are welcome to participate in any of the ad hoc committees, and their participation, since they're not voting members of the commission, does not trigger any Brown Act violations. Should there be 2 commissioners on an ad hoc committee, the adding of a student ex officio commissioner does not trigger any Brown Act violation. So you can have 2 commissioners and a student ex officio on an ad hoc committee, or even just 1 commissioner and an ex officio.
Thank you for the clarification, Ms. Powers.
I think we both want to. Yes, I would,
well, you're both
I would
welcome,
be willing
certainly.
to volunteer with you, Commissioner Lambelotte, on the ad hoc committee.
If the chair agrees.
That would be fine.
And I'll gladly volunteer for community partnerships, number 3.
I think that
we need.
if you would work with me on that, I think that might be a nice, committee.
Was I included in your note for helping?
She's asking if she can include it in your
Sure.
her committee too.
Actually, because it would be very good for you to go out into your school, and that would be part of your community partnerships and outreaches.
Okay. Thank you.
Terrific. Would you like to tell us what we're doing now, please?
Yes. I'd like,
Just so that we know who's doing what.
yes. So far, what we have here is for Ad Hoc Committee 1, Vice Chair Miller and Commissioner Kajayan. And that's the Mount St. Mary's, I'll call it the Report on the Status of Women and Girls Ad Hoc Committee. Ad Hoc Committee 2, which is Education and Outreach, would be Commissioner Lambalot and ex officio Kim. Ad Hoc Committee 3, Community Partnerships, would be Commissioner Perrion, Chair Burns, and ex officio Serrano.
May I have a question?
Hang on just a second. Are
Is
you
that
finished yet?
is there any corrections to that, or is that accurate based on what everybody requested?
Yeah.
Did
Can we be in one more than one ad hoc committee? Because she said she's only one and with ex officio. Can I join her, or can we do that?
I
or-
don't know.
Wants to be on 2. That's a good idea.
I'm not sure that.
Can we?
That's possible, yes, up to 2 commissioners,
Commission-
and that commission only has 1 commissioner on it right now and 1 ex officio.
So you would feel comfortable leaving?
No,
No, my question is more than,
And
she wants to serve on 2 commissions.
is it?
She is our superstar commissioner. This one.
Okay.
So Commissioner Kajoyan is our superstar. She's going to do.
Thank you for.
You're awesome.
Now,
Wants to serve.
we now look at what I thought should be looked at first, but it's okay. Can we?
I understand now what she was trying to say. She wants us to go back and read the report, then we decide. That's what her.
That's actually what I was thinking
Was-
of doing, because if you look at Mount St. Mary's, and I certainly have a tremendous regard. If you look at this booklet and you see Pasadena and you see what is that other $15,000 one? Tremendous amount of work that we need to decide whether we want to spend the money.
Well,
Chair Burns, if I may, on the item that's before you regarding the ad hoc committees, you do need a motion on that to establish the committees, and then we can read the next item into the record and then start discussing that. So, as presented by Ms. Powers,
revision.
with the revision and the addition of Commissioner Kojoyan to the Education and Outreach Committee, you'll need a motion to confirm those appointments.
and I'll make that motion in one moment. I'm wondering, is this the time where we ask or request or have a discussion before that motion on adding any ad hocs, or is there another place in the agenda that you think is better?
This would be the time, Vice Chair Miller, and this would also be the time if the commission as a whole wants to provide more specific direction or its desires, its interests for each of the ad hoc committees and provide that direction to your fellow commissioners, this would be the time to do it. Not that it can't be done at future meetings, but this is certainly the appropriate time in today's agenda to do so.
May I, Chair Burns?
As long as I get to go next.
It's in terms of requesting an additional ad hoc. Would you like me to wait, or?
Sure, it might be in
Okay.
here.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, go.
I am wondering, since we are in a reformation or reformatting phase, and can be a fairly exciting one, an innovative one, since later on in the agenda we are holding off on a discussion around the funds until November, I'm wondering if it so serves this particular commission to have an ad hoc committee specific to finances, so that we might be able to present to the entire dais further a discussion about what other options might be available in addition to the one option that was presented to us, which is a fine option, but there might be other options that serve the particular commission better, as well as the women and girls in the city of Glendale. And to that end, I'm wondering if it's at least worth it. I know I'm bringing it up because I have some ideas and I'm pretty passionate behind it in terms of what we might discuss as a commission and how that money might be useful and what we might think about. So what does the commission think about that being an ad hoc, that we bring it forward so that there's a structured exploration of those funds that goes just beyond what's being done at staff level and the chair level about where these monies may go?
Did we not do that at Chevy Chase?
Not to me, or I wouldn't have brought it up.
I understand, but that was, I think, what came out of that meeting. Anyway, let me just read something, and maybe you can give me some thoughts on that one too.
Did we have finances?
What we did was did we not do exactly what was presented to the council on Tuesday?
I'm sorry, in regards to what?
Finance?
No, not finance. Just
Is your inquiry?
This is what our goals are. These are the goals that we're looking at.
Is your inquiry that did the commission review or study the transfer of funds during your study session? Is that your inquiry?
No. What I'm asking is, I thought with our strategic plan, it had been done. And if we can, I did not think we could open it up again, because we've already done the strategic plan for 15, 16, 17, 18.
If I may, I understood Vice Chair Miller's recommendation to be relative to item B1 on your agenda, which is the status of the potential transfer of the Commission's funds to the community foundations. And I believe her inquiry, and you can tell me if I'm stating this incorrectly, is whether or not there should be an ad hoc committee that studies whether that is the appropriate transfer or it should be some other investment of those funds. Did I misunderstand you?
You did not. Further, if it helps to put into examples of that, what the ad hoc committee might do is they might look at options beyond one lump sum, or they might look at what community partners need, which is going to tie into the other ad hoc that will be worked on by our new commissioner. They might look at those things and present options that say, here's something to consider for 2016, here's something to consider for 2017. Again, it's at least, in my thought in bringing it forward is it's at least worth it in terms of further explanation or further discussion than just 4 times a year. And since we have a November meeting where they'll be presenting, I'm not asking for an ad hoc committee that's ongoing, but we have September, we have October, we have November, and then in the interest of really the formation of ourselves, we all come back to November and we have all sorts of ideas to look at that maybe are great for the city of Glendale and women and girls and this commission.
You're talking about the money, and that's it.
Yeah, nothing more.
All right. I would like to read the this which is called the 18 Issues Challenging Women Today. And actually, I would like the commissioners to just jot things down that they might possibly think are good for us to look at if we're going to pay Mount St. Mary's money. Poverty, hunger, and homelessness, continuing gender wage gap, violence against women, containing, I'm going to leave that one out. That's a very political one, so I'll skip over number 4. Inadequate maternal and infant health care, the absence of laws mandating paid sick and parental leave, reasonable accommodations for pregnant women, the lack of affordability and competent child care, and I believe that was something that Councilman or Councilwoman Friedman spoke about. Is that not correct? Mm-hmm. The treatment of women in prison. Betty, you had an interest in that. Human trafficking, sex slavery, severe continued underrepresentation of women in political life, discrimination in academia, the higher in terms of faculty rank, salary, not salad, I'm hungry, prestige and status, the fewer are the women, underrepresentation in the justice system, inadequate representation among those who run our top corporations and serve on corporate boards, inadequate representation and unequal pay for actors, writers, directors, producers, and that was Commissioner Lull, keeping women in high-tech fields, lack of health insurance, and then ERA and CEDAW. These were things that I think somehow or other last year we each got one of these, and I think some of them might belong in the list if we're going to look at Mount St. Mary's pulling things out for Glendale. I think some of these are important for Glendale.
Chair Burns,
Yes.
is your recommendation that one of those items or many of those items come back in the form of an ad hoc committee to study? Or is that suggestion going to the next item on the agenda as it relates to Mount St. Mary's?
I actually think that what I wanted this commission to do is be thoughtful. Be thoughtful about these 18 challenges. None of them might be important to this commission. 3 of them might be important, but I'm not saying that immediately we go, yes, we want 1, 7, and 12 from Mount St. Mary's. All I'm saying is let's take a peek at some of these that we all seem, or most of us seem to find important.
What you are saying is when we are reading the Mount St. Mary's report to consider all this. Okay, I don't know if, I know I have it, but I don't know where. Can we have the copy?
Of course. Of course. And that probably might be able to be done today. Yes? Okay. Thank you. That's all. And if any of you made some notes and began to consider some of the things that we are looking as issues that belong to Glendale or are sort of part of Glendale or are important to Glendale before we start spreading out to the state or to the country or to the world. I think we need to take a look at Glendale first.
So Chair Burns, you would like the entire commission to get a copy of that, and then you want the ad hoc committee to look at that as well, and everyone else, so that when we have the discussion, when we come back, it'll be very mindful and thoughtful. Is that?
What do you think of that idea?
Great idea. Great idea. So now, in terms of the next, was there any support on the dais? What do you think about the ad hoc committee regarding the finances? A good idea, not a good idea? What can we have to have the discussion now, Chair Burns. I'm sorry to go back to it, but they just said it had to be in this part of the agenda. Or I'd stop.
About the paying Mount St. Mary's?
No. We're in the ad hoc section, but in order to get to, my understanding is, do you want us to just make a motion to those three, or do you want this discussion to? I've requested and proposed a fourth ad hoc. It's either going to die on the dais, or there's going to be discussion and support for it, and we're going to have a motion for four, or we're going to have a motion for three. That's my take on today. Is that your take?
Well, if I may, I'm a little unclear as far as the financial proposals. Would it follow the ad hoc committees meetings and proposals of the activities they would like to pose to the staff, and then come back to the fourth ad hoc committee to discuss what financial commitments are required?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you what I envisioned, and you tell me if I'm answering your. We have a certain amount of funds.
All right.
We have an option before this commission to consider in November for those certain amount of funds. Maybe a good option, maybe a not so good option, but wouldn't it be great to have more options since we're in the formation? And so my suggestion is, should we have an ad hoc committee that might explore ideas? It's not specifically about the amounts or what, it's more about what I envision with that ad hoc committee. They would work closely with you, by the way, in your community partnership, but what is that they would go out and they would really find out where there's a need in this community and then identify specifically. I think it gives us more data in terms of making a decision. And if you, yeah. Does that help at all?
Are we talking about
just
Verdugo Community Foundation?
Yeah, but I'm just talking about an option, and I'm talking about an ad hoc committee that would come back with more options regarding the finances.
Okay.
We did this a little bit in May, and then we pushed it because the choice wasn't there. We either did everything or Ms. Korinsky said that there might possibly be another choice. I'm just thinking about something that you probably would be smarter at me than Ann. What would happen if your group, I'm now finding out that this group really needs
Money.
$8,000, and the group that you're working with needs 12. I'm wondering if that's going to cause some community partners, particularly when we are no longer fundraising. I wonder if it's going to cause community partners to they'd be ticked off. They'd be annoyed. We want that money, rather than explain to them that I'm not even going to say a group, whatever group needed the money, they didn't get it. I don't know whether that
May I ask a question?
creates problems. I don't know.
That's not what I envisioned, but go ahead.
My question was, first of all, I don't see any harm in having another ad hoc committee if what we're doing is gathering information.
Exactly.
And I think if you want to propose the focus of it, that's great. I thought when you first proposed it that you were talking about alternative investment vehicles other than the one that was already presented to us. But it sounds like you're also looking at identifying recipients of commission funds. Is that true? Is that accurate?
That could be one possibility. It's just that it could definitely be that possibility. I just want there to be an opportunity for more discussion than what's been presented. Options. I think if we go back to your very specific statement, Commissioner, that's all it is to have a group to focus on finance, to come back and discuss options. It's nothing more. And nothing's promised and nothing's venture. It's just really an exploratory process to make sure before we potentially vote in November and perhaps lock up funds for a very long time that this is the direction that we want to go.
So
that's all it is.
Okay. And so the last question I just had is I was looking for clarification how that differs from Ad hoc Committee 3 that would work with staff to identify state and county resources, services for women and girls, and to ensure that local organizations are aware of and are utilizing these resources. Are you talking about something more focused than that?
I am.
Scholarships or awards or something along those lines?
Perhaps. Don't know. Perhaps.
So it's just it would be an ad hoc committee with a financial focus.
With a financial focus. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great idea. I would actually like to see it more of a sequential occurrence where the ad hoc committees determine their needs and then roll it up to the ad hoc financial committee who will decide on the proposals and then move forward if there's any other suggestions for spending the finances with other directions based on the data.
Just to clarify, Commissioner Perry and members of the Commission, the establishment of an ad hoc finance committee would not then make that the clearinghouse for the Commission's funding. All funding decisions come back to the Commission as a whole. Commission. And depending on the amount that the Commission chooses to move or spend, it might trigger council direction as well.
Of course.
Something like moving all of the CSW funds to the community foundations of the Verdugo would go through council eventually with recommendation from the Commission. Smaller amounts, as the Commission has been spending in its history, traditionally have not gone through council. So, but everything would come to the Commission. It wouldn't roll from, for example, community partnerships to finance and the decision made by the Finance Ad Hoc Committee. It would just go straight from community partnerships to the Commission or from finance to the Commission. It would be reported here in a meeting setting and then decided by the entire Commission.
I would just like to add that if we do have that ad hoc committee, I think it would make sense to, on a regular basis, once or twice a year, for instance, identify who the ad hoc committee think are worthy recipients, and we could consider those at once rather than on an, for lack of a better word, ad hoc basis as they come up on the quarterly meetings.
Just, Madam Chair, if I may, one item for consideration is that if you establish a committee that's a standing committee and not an ad hoc committee, then that committee is subject to the Brown Act, and it would be required to follow the requirements of the Brown Act. So you want to take that into consideration as you decide whether or not you want to establish a standing committee.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. Then my preference would be just have an ad hoc committee until the next meeting, and then we can examine at that time if we would like to propose it to be a standing committee or have it be part of, just the regular quarterly business. Thank you for the clarification.
And when I brought up the idea, I brought it up with really a short-term shelf life where this commission decides to go with it, they go. But it really is just to have more data in November so that we can really have a very thoughtful discussion in terms of what the need is and what we might do and what positions the need for the women and girls in Glendale best. So I guess I need to ask my colleagues, if I make a motion, do you want them separated out, or are we ready to vote on all four? Because if there's dissension, there's no point in voting on all four if there's still discussion.
Just to make it also a note, if there is interest in adding the financial ad hoc committee staff would also like to have in the motion who would serve on that ad hoc committee as part of the motion.
I would like to serve on it as bringing it up.
And further, the other ad hoc committees have somewhat of a description about the type of work and their parameters. We've had quite a bit of discussion here about alternative investment opportunities or granting opportunities. You should also provide further direction as to what you want the scope of that committee to be. And for the sake of maybe answering your question about should there be, you could potentially make 2 motions and make make one motion specific to your proposed committee of ad hoc committee number 4 and see if there's a second. Alternatively, you can take all 3 of them as discussed or vote on the first 3 first and then split them up.
What would you like, Chair Burns? You want them split up or you want them all together?
I think they should be split up.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve ad hoc committees 1, 2, and 3. Would you like them named? Do you need them named? Okay.
No, I don't think so. We're fine.
With the proposed volunteers, as was stated earlier.
Okay. With the proposed volunteers, as stated earlier, ad hoc committee would be Commissioner Kajoyan and myself, Commissioner Miller. Ad hoc committee 2 is Commissioner Lambolet, and our 2 ex officio students is
Sorry, it's one ex officio and then Commissioner Kajayan.
Commissioner Kajayan, our ex officio, Regina Kim, and Commissioner Lambolet. And then for ad hoc committee 3, we have Chair Burns, we have Commissioner Parian, sorry about that, and our ex officio, Pauline Serrano. We need a second.
I second it.
A roll call vote on that would be Commissioner Kajayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambolat,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Arian,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Thank you. And now
I would
next
like to ask a question that would seem to me a lot easier than an ad hoc committee. I think the groups in Glendale, certainly the ones that I belong to, and I know that Commissioner Seta belongs to them. We all belong to the groups in Glendale, and we all know their needs. Would there be a problem with inviting the treasurer or the president or whomever represented that group to come present a desire or a need for some financial help? Once the money's gone, it's gone.
Chair Burns, that's not what I envisioned. This would be that may be the case, and that may be a discussion for our 2016 meeting, and that may be a very viable option that we all decide together. I'm simply asking that we have a committee that has 1 or 2 members, preferably 2 members at a minimum, who come together and really, outside of the box and outside of what's been presented, really come up with some really interesting and innovative ways and best practices ways. We haven't even been able to look at what other cities are doing to just give this commission a few ideas around that. That's it. We have one idea. There seems no harm in having more ideas. I'm not sure about the length of this discussion.
I'm not.
Why it's necessary.
Well, I'm sorry, but it would seem that the ad hoc committee number 3, community partnership, might fit what you want.
it doesn't, or I wouldn't have brought up an ad hoc committee.
Chair Burns and Vice Chair Miller, members of the commission, I think it would help if we could clarify the scope of this ad hoc committee.
Exactly.
I think Commissioner Lambalot had posed the question, is it to look at investments of where we would house the money, or is this how the commission would spend its money? I think establishing that and giving this, giving a brief description of this ad hoc committee and a little bit of the scope, I think would help clarify the discussion and help move it along. As far as
why couldn't it be both of those avenues? Again, why can't we go to ad hoc committee and perhaps be open, and maybe it's both of those avenues. Maybe it's investment strategies, maybe it's looking at community partners. We don't know. We aren't even close to having a discussion with any treasurers from any groups whatsoever, because we don't know what the best practice is. All we know is we've had one group present to us. There's been discussions that I think it's a much more meaty discussion when you can go to ad hoc committee and really have this sort of discussion and look at all different ideas. And if this dais doesn't agree, just let's move on, and I'll bring it in my individual comments in November. Either way, I think it's more fruitful if it's a committee discussion. That's what we are, but at least what we're really going for is just the exploration of it. There's nothing more to this.
Well,
Simple.
the problem with some of the meat is we cannot have a bank account.
Well, let the ad hoc committee explore that.
But no, we've already heard that. That was discussed at the last meeting. We are not able to take the money and open a bank account for the committee on the status of women. So actually the way it was left was, let's just leave it with the city, pointing out that the money becomes less valuable. I'm finished.
What do we have?
Have a motion?
Yeah.
Are you ready for a motion?
if anyone would like to make a motion, staff is ready to hear it.
I make a motion that we establish an ad hoc committee to look at a number of different, an ad hoc committee specific to finances with a scope that is really on an exploratory phase, either in where the money might be utilized, investment strategies, and best practices for this commission. And we come back in November and have with a view of presenting at the November meeting for discussion to this commission. Second?
If there's no second to the motion, then it would die for lack of a second. In the interest of moving it along, I think maybe the next motion would be as to who would serve on the committee, or did you want to add that at this phase as well?
Since, well, I am volunteering to be on the committee because I'm doing a lot of discussion around this. It would be great to have one of the new commissioners serve on this committee as well with me, so that it's not just one commissioner.
I can serve.
Yeah.
Okay, so then your motion would include both Vice Chair Miller and Commissioner Perrion as the volunteers for that. I understand that to be your motion, and is that okay for the person who's making the second?
Yes.
Okay.
Call vote. Commissioners Kojayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambalot,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Arian,
Yes.
Chair Burns.
No.
Are there any other motions and discussions on this item before we move on to the next item? Thank you. At 3 is consideration and discussion of partnership with Mount St. Mary's University to produce a report on the status of women and girls in Glendale. And at A is a motion providing direction on the type and the cost of the report. Chair Burns, members of the commission, this report is being brought forward to you based on discussions at the last 2 meetings of the commission expressing interest in publishing an updated report on the status of women and girls in Glendale. The last such and only report published by the Commission, titled The Commission on the Status of Women Report 2004 to 2006, is included as Exhibit 1 of the report before you. The report provided information on women in Glendale on topics of demographics, education, economic health, political participation, pay parity, poverty, violence against women, and political representation. The report also provided recommendations regarding the findings, along with a list of resources that the CSW continues to update and distribute. During its conversations regarding an updated report, the Commission had identified Mount St. Mary's and the possibility of partnering with the university, who has been publishing a statewide report on the status of women and girls in California for the past 4 years. The 2015 Mount St. Mary's report, which is included as Exhibit 2, includes information on demographics, education, employment and earnings, poverty, media, business leadership, political representation, physical health, mental health, violence, and veterans. Given that Mount St. Mary's has gathered a wealth of information that pertains to women and girls statewide, interest has been generated by other entities in the area to partner with Mount St. Mary's and produce reports that are of interest specific to their region. So this is something that Mount St. Mary's is starting to work with different groups to do. So one of the recent collaborations that has come to fruition is that the Pasadena Commission on the Status of Women produced a 19-page report, which is also included in this report as an Exhibit 3. And their report includes information on employment and earnings, housing and homelessness, women, veterans, domestic violence, and human trafficking. And right now, the report hasn't been released yet, but Mount St. Mary's University is currently working with 2 groups in Kern County together. It's the Women and Girls Funds of the Kern Community Foundation and Women's Leadership Council of United Way, and they're producing a report that supports their interests, which are listed in your report. I won't read through all the topics there. They're working to provide Kern County with a 120-page online report and an executive summary and a number of areas that they're researching. And should the Commission be interested in working with Mount St. Mary's on producing a report that's specific to Glendale, the cost really for Mount St. Mary's to do the research and produce the report for the Commission would really depend on the extensiveness, the length of the report, the number of research areas that the Commission wishes to look at. So the examples, the estimates that have been provided by Mount St. Mary's, which is included in the fiscal impact section of your reports, if we were to do something similar to what the Commission has previously produced, which is the 0406 report, that would cost anywhere in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. The Pasadena report would cost about $3,000, and something as extensive as the Kern County, which is actually longer than the Mount St. Mary's report. The Mount St. Mary's report's about 90 pages, and the Kern County report is going to be 120 pages. So it seems that it's not only research, but expanding on the research and extensive discussions on it. So that one is going to cost the 2 groups in Kern about $15,000 when all is said and done. And that concludes staff's report if there's any questions. Excuse me.
May I make a comment? In watching the City Council meeting on July 28th, it seemed apparent to me that the City Council is very interested in obtaining a report of this type, and given that we're at about the 10-year mark, it seems like it's very timely. For some reason in my mind, I was thinking every 10 years there's a census, So, I'm sort of analogous to that. Chair Burns, I'm very cognizant of the fact that we have funds that we want to be very careful with, given that we're not fundraising anymore. I think this is a worthy expenditure, at least from my viewpoint, having not done this before, but I think that it does give us a baseline, and it gives us some information that we can use to examine a number of things, and that our city can use to determine where we stand on various issues. I will give a very short report at the end of the meeting about the Association of Commissions on the Status of Women that I attended in June. The Pasadena report was brought up. The Mount St. Mary's folks are very excited about it and wanting to share their data, so it's sort of like a bird in the hand. The city of Santa Monica, if I remember correctly, also just completed a study on the status of women with some difficulty. So I think given that the Mount St. Mary's data is current, it's a great time to jump on it and make use of it. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the commission?
I agree with you, Commissioner Lemblay, and I would also ask staff, has any exploration been done to find out if there will be any support from the state level? I know that in the past years, the California Commission on the Status of Women has not been available from a funding standpoint, but my understanding is that most recently they received a good amount of funding and they are stronger, their words, than ever, and it was actually reported that way. So I'm wondering if there's any support or partnering that they might want to do financially with the City of Glendale that might also further help to offset.
Vice Chair Miller, members of the Commission, staff is not aware of the California Commission does get budget from the state as far as distributing those funds. Staff is not aware of them distributing funds. If there's any members of the Commission who have information on that, and that's something we can certainly explore. But to staff's knowledge, we're not aware of funding partnership opportunities. But it seems like Commissioner Lambalot might know the answer to that question.
Because I'm reaching for my button. It did come up at the ACCW meeting that they were essentially defunct for the last several years, California Commission on the Status of Women, but there is now $500,000 in the budget, in thanks in great part to State Assembly Speaker Tony Atkins, who actually spoke at the conference. But there was I think that they have a budget now, but there was no discussion about dispersing it to other commissions, and there was no discussion as to how they're going to specifically spend their sums. However, there was a note that there's something called the Department of Women's Labor Bureau, which I need to further explore, and they said they will support the commissions and provide various statistics as needed. Now, I don't know if this is going to overlap with the Mount St. Mary's report, and this sort of eats into what I was going to speak about later, but there were a number of things that came up at ACCW, and rather than going through them all tonight, what I intended to do is just give a brief summary, and then points like this, what I will do is categorize them, give them to staff so that they can share them with the ad hoc committees and make most use of it if Chair Burns and the other commissioners agree. I thought that was the best use of that information.
Great. When I was reading this report, I found out that the St. Mary's report is similar that what we had in City of Glendale 2006 report, but it's more elaborated. I think I'm
sorry, Commissioner, which city's report?
Our report, 2006 report.
Yes.
It's a little bit similar to St. Mary's report, but it's more elaborated. And then the cost, if we go and partnership with, or if we use the St. Mary's report, I think it's the best. And the money is less. It's between $3,000 to $5,000.
Well, since Mount St. Mary's has done so much of the underlying work and legwork, it would seem counterproductive to try to duplicate that at this point, as long as we're current, we're using current data, and the longer we wait, the less current would be, it seems to me.
And just to point out, Commissioner Lambalot, members of the commission, that Mount St. Mary's is an accredited university. They have faculty who can provide the expertise and produce a report that is sound and accurate, that may not be able to be duplicated on a staff level here in the city of Glendale. You do have a highly regarded university who is collecting the data, analyzing the data, and putting the information out. I think that lends a lot to the strength of the report as well.
So, do we have to make a motion on this in order for the ad hoc committee to be able to work on this, or is this the cart before the horse, or how does this work?
At this time, Vice Chair Miller, members of the commission, staff doesn't believe this is the cart before the horse. This is tasking at this point, the established ad hoc committee with the commission's direction.
Got it.
So
Okay.
what staff is asking now is what type of a report, how extensive of a report would you like to see? Would you like to work with Mount St. Mary's to even produce a report? There's been discussion of a report, but there's been no formal action by the commission to actually move forward and do an updated status of women in Glendale. So the first question for the commission to consider is, does the commission want to do a report? If you do want to do a report, would you like to partner with Mount St. Mary's? If you'd like to partner with Mount St. Mary's, what is how extensive of a report would you like, and how much do you feel comfortable spending on such a report? So essentially that's what staff is asking for the commission's direction this evening.
Ms. Powers, is it possible to, let's say the commission agrees on allocating, let's say $5,000 to have a report similar to Pasadena, if the ad hoc committee in its study determines that more is needed, or that there's some additional study that needs to be made, can that be brought up at the next meeting?
Absolutely, that can always come back, Commissioner Lambalot, to the commission. It would have to come back to the commission if it involves expending more money or going beyond the scope that's agreed upon by the commission, then absolutely that would come back to the commission for your decision. And again, based on how far we are into the quarter and the urgency of it, a special meeting can be called, or it can be taken up at a following quarterly meeting, just depending on where we're at and how urgent that decision is.
Because it seems to me that the ad hoc committee will need a little more study, for instance, looking at the former Glendale report and the Pasadena report and seeing if there are any gaps, or maybe something unique to Glendale. And I also had a question, Ms. Powers. Did Mount St. Mary's indicate how long it takes them once we essentially order the report and pay them, how long it would take them to put it together?
To be quite honest, they didn't give us, Commissioner Lambalot, a timeline. I think it would depend. There's other groups and commissions also vetting Mount St. Mary's at this time. I really think it would depend on their workload and how many different reports they're generating at that time, what they're working on. I'm trying to see if I don't believe I have a timeline for Kern County. Was a few months, and that was an extensive report.
Okay.
But their timeline was several months.
Okay.
I honestly believe some of it depends on how much back and forth editing there is, how much changing there is, and they've had experiences where it's been relatively short, and they've had experiences where it's taken a while, just depending on working out what that group wants for their report.
Okay,
But
thank
we
you.
can certainly identify a timeline.
Thank you.
So, did you want to make a motion, Commissioner, about where you were going and the direction and the amount, or would you like, what would you like?
There hasn't been a discussion about the amount. I was thinking of deferring to Chair Burns and then the ad hoc committee. My personal opinion is that a report the size of about Pasadena's sounds viable and workable to me. If it's too extensive, I think you lose emphasis in certain areas and you may lose readership. A part of it is what we want to use it for, but I think that the more succinct and the more information we can capture in a succinct manner, the better, without leaving anything out. So I'm not sure that that we need a report the size of Kern counties. And given that Pasadena is a city that is in some ways comparable to Glendale, I would think that would be a starting point at any rate.
Is there any opportunity to see what Pasadena's been?
Well, in the alternatives that are listed, Chair Burns and Commissioner Lambolet, it sounds like the original question you asked on page 4 of the report in the alternatives, that 5,000, not to exceed 5,000, is a fair and reasonable and doable number to allow the ad hoc committee to come back, to explore and to come back with options to this commission for decision. It looks like these are based on the costs that staff provided, through somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000.
Yes, Mount St. Mary's provided these costs. They told us that, and Pasadena was really, I hate to use the term, but the guinea pig for them. That's why this report is completed, done. It was a pretty bare minimum type of report. Should the commission want to duplicate its efforts from before, and I think Mount St. Mary's looked at the commission's previous report and liked the amount of content in it. They said they liked the fact that the commission provided recommendations. So they looked at that one and said, between 3 to 5, and it would depend, and it is an estimate. So an amount not to exceed would be nice. Creating a little bit of a buffer would be nice. And yeah, these are numbers that they provided, being estimates, and this is something, again, relatively new that they're exploring. One of the things that Mount St. Mary's was trying to do and wasn't able to was to create, for lack of a better term, package deals. So there would be package A, which would include X number of different facets to look at and analyze, and would be about X number of pages in length. And package B would be a little more extensive, and package B would be a little more extensive. But as the university has been talking to different groups, they found that different entities are really truly interested in very different things, and it was hard for them to capture that in packages. So they're doing their best to provide estimates to groups based on their interests and based on what maybe they've produced in the past. So we would do our best to keep to those estimates, but it might come back that if the ad hoc committee wants to look at additional items or the costs do go up for some reason, that would come back to the commission.
I have a question that came up in my mind. As I'm looking at the ad hoc committees and the functions detailed, I was under the impression that there was a report. What report would we use when we start meeting if the St. Mary's report is not going to be available for 6 months out or whatever the timeline may be? I'm not sure, do we need some kind of a report to anchor our decisions? Or not decisions, but our, recommendations? What would we use for all of these ad hoc committees, especially the finance one? If we were going to be looking at data, what data would we be looking at if the Mount St. Mary's report is not available at the time we meet?
I'm sorry, could you maybe
St. Mary's
rephrase the
report.
question just a little bit and maybe,
She's asking about St. Mary's report, if it's ready, that when ad hoc committee get the meeting, that they can
well,
review.
the St. Mary's report Mount St. Mary's report, their 2015 report is included.
Okay. Oh, okay, because I was a little confused when we were approving expenditure for, I guess, is it specific to Glendale?
Yes.
That we're
Yes.
approving?
Yes.
Okay, so then, again, if we are going to be waiting for data that is specific to Glendale, the ad hoc committees, what would we be looking at? What kind of data would we be looking at until the specific to Glendale data is available? Would we be looking at the California data or a previous report?
I think the combination, Commissioner, of the strategic plan, all of us in our experience learning about
Okay.
you and your expertise and your input, and then all of us, individually, as you talk to us about different community partners, I think that will give the seed groundwork for where you might want to go on your particular ad hoc, and then we'll have the data in a little bit of time to come.
I just wanted, I wasn't clear. I'm kind of new, and so I'm not sure, if we can start to contemplate activities, prior to having that
Yeah,
report.
certainly you can, look at the California data and kind of work from there, and then the goal would be hopefully to get this report within 6 months.
The new commissioner always writes the report, right? So are we going to make a motion so we can?
I'll be happy to make a motion. Correct me if I've got any of the facts wrong. I make a motion. I move that we partner with St. Mary's to do a report on the status of women and girls in the city of Glendale in conjunction with Mount St. Mary's and/or using their data. And I move that the cost not exceed, our expenditure not exceed $5,000.
I'll second.
May I mention something to you?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't mentioned, you've mentioned the cost, but you have not mentioned.
Parameters.
Correct.
Thank you, Chair Burns. Let me rephrase the motion. Let me add something to it.
And the parameters are, I think, are rather large right now.
I think we're back to discussion then. Is it,
Certainly, you can discuss the motion, and I think that's part of the discussion, is discussing the parameters of the item.
Would you like me to remove my second?
You don't need to.
But the parameters are there, and we really have not parameterized them.
Sure, you can certainly have a discussion about the motion that includes the parameters, and if you decide that the motion needs further clarification, you may do so at that point, or you may decide that you don't need it, and you can continue to vote on the motion.
my thought was that it be, the report be similar in scope to the Glendale 2004-2005 report, and/or the current Pasadena report. And that's as far as I got with that. If you have, and not as large in scope as the Kern County report. That's about as far as parameters that I can speak to at this time. Do you have an opinion as to?
Pasadena is about half the size of us. So we are having there would be a smaller information coming from Pasadena.
I guess we're not really defining the criteria at this point, or the categories. I was thinking more in terms of the topics and categories in the reports, the sections of the report.
I'm fine with that, Commissioner.
Yeah, but again, I have limited knowledge, and I think that.
So the parameter is the amount of money, or?
I think the parameters as to the content and the
Content.
scope. And really all we're talking about now is, we've talked about the size, the Pasadena report, the prior Glendale report, and then the larger Kern County report.
Just to
Now,
make it-
see, I would see the parameters, being just that in terms of direction from this commission. This commission would say just that. We want it to be more like Pasadena. We don't want it to be like Kern. We don't want it to exceed 5,000. And then you would let the ad hoc committee come back to you specifically on the topics. Everybody will, by that point, when we come back together, we'll also have, I mean, it's not like you're not going to look at this and from now until November. Of course, we'll all look at it, but the ad hoc committee will come back with recommendations. You might say, no, I want this category or that category, but at least let the ad hoc committee do their work.
Well, it's their work would not get started for 3 months then. So if we were looking at something that's November, what you're suggesting is the parameters are not going to be discussed until November.
Okay. Chair Burns, I see where you're going. So does this then why do we need an ad hoc committee? If we're discussing parameters now and we're giving St. Mary's their, I'm really truly just asking. I'm trying to understand. I guess it's a confusing piece.
And apologies if this is written in a way that's confusing. Staff believes that if looking at the alternatives listed in the report, looking at alternative 1, the Commission may choose to partner with Mount St. Mary's University to produce a report similar to the 2004-2006 CSW report at an approximate cost of $3,000 to $5,000.
That's what we're voting.
It seems like from what Commissioner Lambalot, the motion that was set forward was the parameter is to produce a report that's similar in scope to what the Commission on the Status of Women in Glendale has produced in the past with an amount not to exceed $5,000. That should be at this point enough direction for that first ad hoc committee working on the report to then begin working with staff here and Mount St. Mary's staff to get the ball rolling on what the different research areas will be and how much they will be expanded. Because that, looking at the Commission on the Status of Women's report in Glendale, that will give Mount St. Mary's a very clear, concrete set of parameters as to what we want. And that can be tweaked along the way by the Commission, should the Commission want to do that. But at this point, it seems like it's enough information for the ad hoc committee to move forward.
It is.
It's 9 years since this information given to us. You probably, because of the hospital, would have a better idea what's going on. 9 years.
So is your motion to give me the money? No,
No, I'll split it with you.
I mean, where are we going?
And you know what I'm trying to say? Am I going to say to you, hey, Commissioner Denise, I would like a report from you, and I want it to be kind of like it was 9 years ago. Glendale has changed a tremendous amount, I think, in 9 years. And I'm not sure that, once again, I'm going back to the fact that I think we should have taken a look at the,
Strategic plan.
The strategic plan and what we were looking for, rather than deciding to go $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 without giving direction. We're paying. We are purchasing. We are buying this, and it would seem to me that it should be important to us to indicate what we want and what we would like. A lot of money.
I would assume one of the purposes of the ad hoc committee would be to determine what is lacking in the 2004-2005 report and suggest that that be added to the new report, and also perhaps compare how Glendale stands vis-a-vis the state of California figures. I would assume those would be part of the ad hoc committee's duties and goals. And I guess the sticking point here is you're saying, how do we determine how much it's going to cost without knowing those specifics? But my impression is that we're just trying to have a ballpark figure. If you think it's premature to vote on that, then I guess I'd ask staff if you have any suggestions at this point.
Certainly, the commission can look tonight at if you choose to, we can look at the topics and discuss those tonight. As far as what the topics are in the Glendale report and what the topics are in the Pasadena report, and can provide that specific direction this evening without any sort of motion to partner with Mount St. Mary's and attaching a dollar figure. The commission cannot move forward with beginning. First, we would draw up a contract and, get all of that taken care of, but we would not be able to move forward with partnering with them and just getting the ball rolling on a report without commission action this evening. And it would then wait to a future meeting. Certainly, staff and the ad hoc committee can continue discussions as far as obtaining estimates, but at this point, short of providing Mount St. Mary's with additional feedback, I'm not quite sure how much more detailed of an estimate can be brought forward at this time.
So with the motion, okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Does anyone have the ability to get what Mount St. Mary's has given for $3,000 Pasadena? Does anybody have any way of getting that so that we could see it?
It didn't.
No?
The report is provided as Exhibit 3. Pasadena's report is included in the packet. It's way past the very lengthy Mount St. Mary's report. But it's included as Exhibit 3 of your report.
There's no page number.
No page number?
Page 85.
After page 85.
85, next page.
Thank you.
So with that, I guess then the question goes, Chair Burns, are you wanting to have further discussion? Because we do have a motion and we do have a second, and we could just take a vote, or do you want further discussion
Let's
on
vote.
Do I need to supplement the motion with the scope of the report, or it seems that's premature at this time?
In light of the discussion that you've had, you may want to look at the alternative motions that were provided to you and see if you would like to provide the additional clarity as far as whether or not you'd like it to mirror in the categories that as were identified on page 2 of your report as it relates to the topics that were originally covered.
You could do that, or you can also,
Defer to the committee.
Defer to the committee. So that's where I think we're getting stuck on is because I think we all agree, and I'm only doing this for simplicity purposes. Stop me, Chair Burns, if you'd like, if you want to summarize this.
Okay.
We have to all agree if we want to do the report, if we want to partner with Mount St. Mary's. We have an amount on the table not to exceed $5,000. Specifically, the parameters around that are to use the previous report that was provided, to use the Pasadena report that was provided, and to certainly not look at the Kern report. That's my understanding that I have. Does any other commissioner have something else? And then So we can either vote on that, or is the discussion going to a place where you're going to get down to the specific areas that you only want this ad hoc committee to look at?
And perhaps we can have staff review or reread what the original motion was in the possible amendment that you may want to consider.
So the original motion read a motion to partner with Mount St. Mary's University to execute a report for the status of women and girls in Glendale with a cost not to exceed $5,000. And the parameters that Commissioner Lambalot laid out in addition to that motion was to do a report similar to the Glendale 2004-2006 and or the Commission on the Status of Women in Pasadena's report, but not a large extensive report like Kern County's, which the funding that you've allotted doesn't support anyways. So if that's enough, if that is okay with Commissioner Lambalot, who made the motion, and Vice Chair Miller, who seconded it, we can lump that all together, which includes the partnering, the amount not to exceed, and general parameters which the ad hoc committee can use to work off of. Any objections?
So we do roll call. Okay. Chair Burns, are we doing roll call?
Yes, I'm like going in front of my face about this. But we'll call for a roll call.
Commissioners Kojayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambalot,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Perrion,
Yes.
Chair Burns.
Yes.
Excuse me. At 4 is consideration and discussion of a legislative update. At A is a motion to add women's safety to the Commission's legislative platform, and at B is a motion providing direction regarding the list of bills that have been presented. Chair Burns, would you like a report?
Yes, please.
Excuse me. Chair Burns, members of the Commission, at the last meeting of the Commission on the Status of Women, the Commission did adopt its legislative platform, and based on this platform, staff is to monitor pertinent legislation and provide information at each quarterly meeting to the Commission regarding its legislative priorities on proposed legislation as directed by its platform. The Commission may make recommendations to City Council on specific legislative items for their consideration to take appropriate action when required in order to safeguard and or advance the interests of women and girls in Glendale. The current legislative platform of the Commission focuses on women in the workplace, women's health, women in the budget, women in the military and military families, and women in post-secondary education. And one of the commissioners made a suggestion afterwards, which was to add the topic of trafficking to this list. And in reviewing the adopted platform and the suggestion, staff recommends adding a 6th priority to the platform, which would be women's safety. And this would focus on legislation that works to prevent women from violence, including trafficking. So at this point, the Commission does seek direction on whether to add that 6th item to the platform, and the staff has presented a number of bills. I'd be more than happy to provide a brief summary on each of the bills as we go through the list. Would that be something the Commission's interested in? I'd be happy to do that.
Can we add one more, or it's not? We cannot do that. One more category to this one?
In addition to the...
Yes, 6 of them, like women in prison. We don't have that.
Okay, that could fall under women's safety.
Safety?
But
Okay.
if you would like to add women in prison as a 7th dimension, that would certainly be that would be subject to the Commission. Would you like to have a discussion on the platform itself before we talk about the bills, or would you like to hear everything first and then have one entire discussion?
When you speak about the bills, you know what becomes most interesting is specifically really a statement about why the staff chose those as they relate to the commission, so that we could really understand where to go with this.
That would be, I would agree with that. However, Commissioner, women in prison,
Yes.
do you recall last year or
Yes.
I think it was very difficult.
Yes, I
And
remember.
I think that adding that for 3 or 4 women when we have an unbelievable amount of bills to deal with might not be a great idea. What do you think?
I think, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner?
Denise, yeah.
Given that this is one that we were discussing over here in terms of why Commissioner Kajoyan brought it up again, there's been some recent items in the news legislatively that are impacting women in prison that really Glendale just might want to watch. But I think, I don't know, staff's suggestion to do it under safety seemed pretty good, right, Commissioner Kajoyan?
Yes,
Yeah,
under
I think
safety.
we're happy over here.
I think so.
Okay.
And that would work for safety of women
Yes.
or girls.
Women's safety would also include incarcerated women.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So then, is there interest to
Yes.
add women's safety as part of the legislative platform at this point?
So we need a motion for A then? I'll go ahead and move to add women's safety to the commission's legislative platform under agenda item A, and with a recognition that we would like that to also include issues affecting incarcerated women.
I second it.
And roll call, Commissioners Kajayan,
Yes.
Lambalot,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Perrion,
Yes.
Chair Burns.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. At this point, staff can go through all of the proposed legislation and provide a brief summary on each of them. So first, there's AB 202 from Gonzalez. This relates to professional sports teams, cheerleaders, employee status. This bill is actually, it was just recently chaptered, which means it is a law. Staff left it on there just to show you an example of one of the bills that the staff has been tracking. And this pertains to cheerleaders. Cheerleaders aren't considered under prior law, cheerleaders were not considered employees. So cheerleaders did not have the rights under the Fair Labor Act and minimum wage requirements, and any leave requirements did not pertain to cheerleaders. Cheerleaders, I believe, were looked at as volunteers and interns and things like that. So what this law did was it required professional sports team who have cheerleaders to employ them as employees and provide them the same rights that they would to any of their other employees. And this was chosen to add to the platform because cheerleaders tend to be women, and this pertains to women in the workplace and making sure that women are paid fairly for the work that they do. The next one is Assembly Concurrent Resolution 50. This is a resolution that was passed by Senate, and it's currently on its way to the governor. And this would proclaim April 14, 2015 as Equal Pay Day in recognition of the need to eliminate the gender gap in earnings by women and to promote policies to ensure equal pay for all. And staff recommends support for this measure. So this isn't so much a law as much as a resolution, and it would just be supporting that resolution to the governor. The next bill before you is Senate Bill 358, and this was, the author is Jackson. It's titled Conditions of Employment, Gender Wage Differential. This bill is currently in the Assembly Committee on Appropriations. Also known as the California Fair Pay Act, this bill seeks to strengthen the state's existing equal pay laws by eliminating loopholes that prevent effective enforcement and by empowering employees to discuss their pay without fear of retaliation. Currently, there are labor codes provisions that prohibit retaliation against employees for disclosing their own wages, but there is no specific protection for inquiring about the wages of other employees, even if the purpose of the inquiry is to exercise one's right to be paid equally for equal work. Basically, the current law doesn't protect someone from asking about someone else's wages to find out, am I being paid the same as you? Are we being paid for equal work? So basically, what this bill will do is it will discourage pay secrecy. And this bill impacts women because in California, women earn a median of 84 cents to every dollar earned by a man. And so the recommendation from staff is to support this bill. SB 406, authored by Jackson, has to do with employment leave. This bill is currently in the Assembly Committee on Appropriations. Currently, the Family Rights Act makes it an unlawful employment practice for an employer to refuse to grant a request by an eligible employee to take up to 12 work weeks of unpaid protective leave during any 12-month period to bond with a child that they who was born to, adopted by, or placed in foster care with the employee, to care for the employee's parent, spouse, or child who has a serious health condition, or because the employee is suffering from a serious health condition rendering him or her unable to perform the functions of the job. So currently the Family Rights Act law allows an employee who is eligible to leave for 12 weeks without pay and their job won't be jeopardized. Currently, the businesses that employ fewer than 50 employees are exempt from the Family Rights Act, and they do not have to provide this leave. And what this bill suggests to do is to reduce that number to businesses with only 25 employees. At that point can reduce it. So what this bill would do is allow employers who have from 26 to 50 employees would be required to provide their employees with the provisions of the Family Rights Act bill. This is being brought into this platform because many times women are left to care for their children or for their parents or family members, so this bill does directly affect women, and staff recommends support of this bill. The next two following bills have to do with women's safety. The first one, Assembly Bill 545, authored by Melendez on domestic violence, is currently in Senate Committee on Appropriations. Under existing law, currently a battery committed in a domestic violence case is punishable by a fine not exceeding $2,000 and or by imprisonment in a county jail for up to a 1-year period. If probation is granted, current law requires the defendant to complete a batterer's treatment program. What this bill adds to that is if that a person who has had a previous domestic violence issue is imprisoned, that they be imprisoned for not less than 48 hours if they have committed this before and they are for the subsequent offense, and staff recommends support of that bill. And the final bill before you is Senate Bill 139. That has to do with controlled substances, and this bill is currently in the Committee on Appropriations. And what this bill does is it expands the definition of certain drugs, and why this is on here now is because one of the drugs that's included in this required expansion to basically make it so that the first offense of using or possessing these substances is punishable as an infraction, and then it escalates, is because this new suggestion includes a date rape drug. And date rape drugs are usually used against women in sexual assault cases, so that's why this bill is on the platform. So that concludes the list of bills that staff has tracked. Right now, state legislation is currently in summer recess and is scheduled to return next week on August 16th. The last day for either house to pass any bills in Assembly or Senate is September 11th. And after that, the governor has until October 11th to sign the bills into law or to veto them. Staff is requesting that the commission provide direction on the proposed bills at this point. Whichever bills the commission wishes to support will be presented to City Council, at a future meeting for their consideration and ultimate approval, and any letters of support or opposition would be signed by the mayor on behalf of the City Council and the Commission on the Status of Women. And that concludes my report, if there's any questions.
I have just a quick question on ACR 50, proclaiming April 14th, 2015 is Equal Pay Day. Is that going to be an annual April 15th?
I think it's just something they bring forward to recognize it as.
So
I think they just bring it forward every year as a resolution, and it's more something to bring awareness to it more so than it doesn't provide any law. It's not tied to a law. It's just a resolution that supports and recognizes and brings forward awareness.
I was just questioning.
I know, because it's passed.
Yeah, that's all. Okay. That was my only question.
Any other questions on any of the specific bills? So at this point, we would not necessarily move forward. AB 202 would not be on the list for council consideration since it's already passed. The rest of the bills, if there's any questions or concerns, or if the commission is comfortable with the bills as they're presented, if you're aware of any bills you'd like to add to this list that you'd like to discuss, do that too at this time.
Again, for my own better understanding, when it states recommend to support, and if we vote as yes, what does that really entail as an individual commissioner and as a group? We're just, I mean, is this a vote or is this just solidarity, or I'm
What
not
this
clear.
means, Commissioner Perry and members of the commission, should the commission choose to support these bills, whether one by one or all together, the next step is for staff to take a report to City Council and to request council support. And once, council supports this bill, the list of bills, then the mayor would write a letter on behalf of the City of Glendale and the Commission on the Status of Women. That letter would go to the author of the bill. That letter would go to whatever committee is looking at the bill. Where we are in the timing of it, likely all the letters will be addressed to the governor because they will be sitting on the governor's desk for veto or approval.
Okay.
So they would be a letter from the mayor on behalf of the City of Glendale and the Glendale Commission on the Status of Women, urging him to, in this case, they're all support these bills and why we support these bills. Each commissioner is able to, at any time on your own, as an individual, write letters of support. That's certainly within your rights, as long as it's clearly within your, yours on an individual basis. But on behalf of the City of Glendale or any Glendale entity, it would go through the mayor and the council.
So if we do it, if we choose to do so independently, we would make sure not to sign our name commissioner. Is clearly the directive on that, which clearly makes sense. I have a question. Do you want us to vote on this first? Or I do have a question about this process for future meetings, if I may. Just so since we're going in a new direction, and this could be fairly, how does staff want us, does staff choose the legislation? Do we give you suggestions? I imagine we discuss it quarterly, but are we giving you different information on things we're looking at for the commission to discuss, or are you deciding? How do we do it?
The way these bills were brought to you today is staff presented the legislative platform of the commission to our lobbyists that we employ as a City of Glendale as a whole. These are not lobbyists that were brought on specifically for the commission. These are lobbyists that the city has on retainer, and we work with them on our general City of Glendale legislative platform. So they usually tell us, here are the bills based on your platform that affect you that you may want to take a look at. If there is a specific bill that the commission wants to track and pay attention to, certainly that can come from the commission level to staff, which would then track that bill.
Right, but the step before that, do we individually give you that information? Because we can only discuss it when we're on the dais. How do...
So we can individually.
It would have to be as part of your areas of focus, and if the particular legislation falls into one of those, then you would contact staff, propose the legislation, and she would start tracking it and then bring it back in a future report.
Right. But likely staff's already, since you know our focus is going to have been tracking this anyway. So, okay, great. That's where I was getting.
But if there's a particular bill you're very interested in, by all means, it could be here on the dais or on an individual basis, as long as it falls into the platform. Now, if it's a bill that is outside of the platform, again, that can be brought forward and discussed at a commission meeting. But at this point, with the changes we've made, it seems like most of the bills that the commission would be interested in should fall within the realm of the platform that you currently have. And that goes with City Council. There's a legislative platform for City Council. If there is an item that falls outside of the scope of their legislative platform, those come to them on a case-by-case basis as well.
Staff looking for direction in the form of a motion here?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'll make a motion on just B then, right? We've already done A.
Yes.
So, okay. So I move to approve the tract bills as presented.
I second.
Commissioner Kojayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Lambalot?
Yes?
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Perrion?
Yes.
Chair Burns?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, under B, reports information only. At 1, we have the status of the potential transfer of the Commission on the Status of Women's fund balance to the Community Foundation of the Verdugos. And Chair Burns and Commission, if I may provide you with a brief update on this item. At the last meeting of the Commission in May, a report was provided regarding consideration of transferring the Commission's fund balance of approximately $93,000 to the Community Foundation of the Verdugos. In the report provided back in May, the CSW was informed by the foundation that should it choose to endow the funds, that the funding would become a permanent endowment within the foundation of the Verdugos based on the organization's current policies. The executive director of the foundation, Edna Kurinsky, came to the meeting to answer questions, and she indicated that there had been talks with the foundation board recently to determine whether they would allow existing endowed funds to become non-endowed in the future, and this sparked interest in the commission. And at that point, the commission decided that they would like to wait to hear what the board's final determination is on that specific decision regarding the subject of allowing endowed funds to be converted to non-endowed before making a decision on A, whether to transfer the funds, and B, into what type of fund the monies would be placed in. And although a determination from the board was anticipated by this time, as indicated by Ms. Kurinsky, unfortunately the board has yet to make a decision on this issue, and the executive director has indicated that a decision should be reached by this fall, and once such a determination has been reached, staff can come back to the commission with a report seeking direction on this subject, as was requested by the commission in May. And that concludes my report. There's no action to be taken at this time. Certainly have a discussion on it if you choose so, but there's no action being requested by staff.
This would be
Just an update.
filed. else wants to discuss it, that's fine.
Okay. Next item is an update on the Association of California Commissions for Women's annual meeting, and this is an oral report that is being provided by our ACCW delegate, Commissioner Lambalot, who did attend the meeting in June in San Diego of the ACCW. So I will turn the meeting over to her at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Again, I appreciate being appointed the delegate to the ACCW this year. It's been very enlightening, even though I've just been to one meeting. The meeting I attended was on June 27th. It was a Saturday in San Diego. There were around 15 commissions represented, both city and county. For instance, LA County has a commission on the status of women, as well as LA City, San Francisco as well. Some of them are obviously more active than others, and everybody's got sort of their own, interests that they're focusing on currently. In the interest of time, I don't need to go down the whole list. There were commission reports from every commission. They were oral. I'm waiting for the minutes of the meeting, and we'll inquire about those because I don't have those yet. But there was a lot of information that I think could be useful to us on the various ad hoc committees, and as I indicated earlier, I will summarize those, provide those to staff, and hopefully there'll be some use to the ad hoc committees as far as ideas for what other people are doing. One I found interesting, for instance, was, I believe it was the city of Santa Clara, is recognizing family-friendly workplace and providing them with awards. I don't know if they're monetary awards or what, but there's all sorts of, for instance, types of recognition in the communities that is something we could consider. There are interestingly enough, other commissions, like I believe it was Santa Monica, has turned its focus back to an advisory role and away from fundraising and programming as well. So I think there's some synergy there. People were obviously very interested and passionate about what they're doing. A variety of issues were being tackled by the commissions, by the various commissions in a variety of ways. One thing that stood out to me was that human trafficking is and has become such a huge issue in the U.S., apparently second only to the drug trade as far as illegal monies collected and funds, and now firearms is far behind, and it's just not something that I envisioned happening in this country. So a lot of commissions are tackling that, including providing material on how to spot somebody who may be a victim of human trafficking. And it's not just the sex trade, it's also enforced labor. Actually, even having cards that you carry that list questions you can ask someone to inquire to try to elicit whether they are a victim. Another point of interest was the state assembly, the assembly speaker, Tony Atkins, who was instrumental apparently in persuading the governor to allocate $500,000 for the California Commission on the Status of Women, spoke at the meeting, and she's very passionate and concerned about women's issues, and is very much looking forward to the California Commission on the Status of Women being active again, and hopefully there'll be some impact statewide on that. There's also a state assembly select committee on the status of girls and women regarding issues that affect girls and women, and they're just starting public hearings in the state of California. The first one will be, and I'll share this with the rest of the commission members, on August 20th in San Jose. That is something that we could consider doing, is holding hearings here. Obviously, we need to know what it entails, if there's any costs and all of that, but that was thrown out as a suggestion and or offer to consider having public hearings here in the individual cities, being essentially a host for it. I also am, the next association on the commission on the status of women meeting will be in January in Sacramento, and I offered to work on the planning committee for that. So I think any exposure to what other commissions are doing can't be anything but helpful to us and be motivating to us and hopefully present new ideas. There were a lot of very motivated women in the room, so it was a great experience. Any questions?
Great report.
Great.
Thank you.
Let's see. Commission and staff comments.
Chairman, I would like to welcome and congratulate Commissioner Perian on your appointment in the City of Glendale as a Commissioner on the Status of Women. I think with your experience and all of us together, we can reach what's expected of us to do.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with every one of you.
Also, I would like to add that on Friday, July 10, I attended a special private breakfast reception on behalf of Magic Johnson and LA Sparks. It's a women's professional basketball organization. We got invitation and I attended. The main issue was us to be sponsor community ambassador package, which is 1,500. It include 100 tickets, and they like women to encourage them, women and youth to attend, which will take place on August 30th. And I met a lot of women from different organizations, and it was a new experience for me. Thank you for the invitation that we received.
No? Adam? Thank you.
I just wanted to take a quick opportunity to also welcome our new commissioner. Secondly, to also thank Council for the support of the Commission on the Status of Women, and to further identify as we look forward to the future and what the future may bring. I think it becomes very apparent how fast time is moving. Last time we met, it was before summer, and today I think half of Glendale went back to school. So that tells you how fast time is indeed moving and how much there is to be done. I think what I would really conclude with is that when a woman equally makes the same amount that a man does, instead of 84% to the dollar, then the work of this commission can likely decrease or change to a different platform or move away from whatever it is that they've done. And until that day comes, I think there's much work to be done, and a big congratulation goes out to our city for continuing to be brave and supporting the Commission on the Status of Women.
Thank you. Any staff?
The only comment would be that at the request of Chair Burns, the Women's Resource Guide has been updated, and is an updated list will be going up on the city's website, or the Commission's website. And Commissioner Burns had asked everyone on the Commission to receive some to distribute, and I'll let you talk about that, but just wanted to let you all know that these are being provided to you.
Well, I think this is probably one of the best things the Commission has done by a long shot. It's concise, and it gives women an opportunity to get help. I think hopefully we will have to print hundreds of thousands of them.
I have a question, Chair Byrne. Can we distribute this to other organizations in their meetings or not?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, that's the whole idea, is for you, you could give these out to individuals. You can request stacks of them to distribute to local organizations. This is supposed to be kind of like a pocket guide, something that you can fold it up, slip it into a wallet, a purse, a book bag, and have a list of different things that, hopefully things that women won't need, but should they need, the resources are there for them to call.
Thank you.
I've seen them at Memorial Hospital. I've seen them at Verdugo Hospital. I've seen them at Adventist. And it's invaluable. You know, when we look at, and what I think is invaluable is council, this city did this, whether it's the Commission on the Status of Women, this city supports women. If they didn't, we wouldn't have had anything like this. Nothing. So I think we're working very hard at making $1.10 instead of $1. Come on now, you're supposed to jump on that one. Well, what I'm trying to say to you is perhaps we'll be making more than men, I think. What do you think?
I'll take it.
Okay, equals fine. And that, any other? I can't see what time it is. It's 8:10.
August 10th?
8:10.
Our motion to
We're
adjourn.
finished. Don't go away. I need to reach you.